So, the title of this video is Writing a Heist is Hard. I think what I really mean though is that writing a book is hard, which, you know, we already knew that. We've known that all along. Everybody, it seems like, knows that, except for the people who are actually doing it, because we say, I can do this, it'll be great, it'll be easy, and then it's not. And I just kind of wanted to chat about where I am in the revision process. So let me give you like a quick recap. So I wrote the first draft of this book between November and February, I guess. So November 2021 and February 2022, I finished the first draft. I was actually fairly happy with the first draft because I felt like the voice was pretty clear. The humor was good. I came up with a heist plot, which was exciting. And I felt like it was good writing. Maybe not necessarily good story, as we will find out, but it was fairly good writing. And so then I did a quick edit where I did not rewrite things. I just reworked a little bit. I mostly tweaked the character arc of the main character, Lena. And I did that, and that was what I was calling my second draft. And then I sent the second draft to a couple beta readers as well as an editor, because I really wanted to see, okay, can I get someone to help me figure out how to make my full-length novels actually good? Because I think I've been able to get novellas to a good place. I've been able to get short stories to a pretty good place, but novels are just so much story. And so I felt like I needed help. And so I did that. I got a ton of feedback. And I got all the feedback and I reworked and I re-outlined, and then I spent, let's say, July through December-ish of last year writing the third draft. And then last month, early in January, I reread this third draft. And I will tell you, as I was writing the third draft, I was like, this is it. This is gonna be incredible. I am going to reread this and there's gonna be edits to do, but it's gonna be such a strong story and it's gonna be so fun, and I'm fixing all of these problems and blah, 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 blah. And I read it back and I talked about this in a different video, and I was like, this is not it. There are a lot of reasons why. So the biggest problem with that draft is it is bloated, and by which I mean just like the writing in the first draft, it was sharp and it was short and it was pointed. And the writing in the next draft, I was trying to overcorrect some things that I heard from feedback, and I really overcorrected. It went from a 70,000 word book to like a 98,000 word book, which is way too many. And I know that it was not because it was overwritten. Like, not story events, just like the writing. And I know that because I took the first 35 pages or so and I cut like 2,000-3,000 words from those pages in like an hour. Like, it was really easy to cut it, which, I mean, it's not a bad problem to have, right? And so I kind of came to this dilemma of, you know, I read it through, I'm going back over the suggestions I got from the editor and the beta readers. I had a friend read the first few pages to kind of give me some feedback and help me feel encouraged. And I kind of sat there and I looked at it. And of course, as a writer, we are constantly learning, right? Like, I just finished reading Story by Robert McKee, which, if you didn't know, I have like 2 videos on it. One that's very long. There's like an hour of content on this on my channel, so you should go check it out. I have been reading The Anatomy of Genre by John Truby, and just so happened to read a section about heists. And I've also been watching Aaron Sorkin's masterclass on Masterclass. And literally just looking at this Social Network screenplay and being like, I wish I wrote this. I wish I wrote this. Why am I never going to be able to write something that's this good? And I don't even write screenplays. I write novels. And I was like, this is the most incredible. Anyways, you know how it is when you compare yourself to someone who's great and you're just like, why do I even try? Sometimes, you know? So anyways, I'm going through all that. I have all these story concepts in my head, and I'm looking at what I have. I put it in an outline, you know, scene by scene, all laid out. I was rating the chapters from like needs the most edits to needs the least amount of edits. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, you know what? It is, I could go through. I could edit all of these scenes and I can make them strong. I can take out the fat. I can make them pithy. But there are story problems here. And I will say, I will give myself the credit that I don't think there are very many things that completely do not work, if that makes sense. So, like the opening. Originally in that first draft, I had a major problem, and I didn't even realize this because I thought I was doing this fun genre bending thing where it's like an action story and then at the midpoint it becomes a heist or something. It's really stupid. Is where like the story didn't start for a long time. The beginning was good, Act 1 was good. Act 2, or the first half of Act 2 was terrible. And then from there it actually got good and people were interested again. And so a big thing from the editor and from the beta readers was, okay, start the story earlier, reveal the premise, reveal the story question, blah, blah, blah. And I did that in the third draft, which is good. I did fix that. However, there are some lingering issues, some lingering, shall we call them plot holes? Basically, whatever, I'll just say it since I'm probably going to change it. The whole concept is they have to steal a violin. And why do they have to steal a violin? Well, they have to steal this violin because the crew already stole the violin. They put it somewhere that's very hard to get. And they had an Italian mob person trap them and say, listen, if we find out that the violin that is in this place that's hard to get to is the violin that we're looking for, we're going to kill you. And it turns out that the violin that's in the place that's hard to get to is in fact the violin that they're looking for because my crew put it there. And so they start this whole thing to basically re-steal the violin. Now, as I say that, I'm like, oh, it sounds fine. But what becomes an issue is that they have to hide the fact that they're trying to run this heist from the mob, and like the main source of conflict is this mob, this mafia. And I know a lot about the characters. I know about the leader. Her name's Gianna. I call her G in my head. Like, she's awful, but like I really like her. But she's hardly in the third draft because she can't be, because they have to hide everything that they're doing from her. And there are some reasons, like for example, that Lena, my main character, ends up working where this violin is being stored, and the mob clearly knows that she's working there. And so there's just things that, like, the way it's set up really diminishes the intelligence and effectiveness of the antagonist. I think that's really the biggest issue with it, is that, and you know, there's a chapter in here called Forces of Antagonism that I really took for inspiration. Is that I don't think the antagonistic forces are strong enough. But I don't like that I really can't have my main characters coming in conflict with the direct forces of antagonism, because if I do, it basically diminishes the power of those forces of antagonism. I have no idea if anything I'm saying is making sense. But basically, let's say you're like a mafia person and you think that these people stole the violin that you want, and you're gonna go steal that violin. You get the people in your hands and you say, all right, I'm watching you. If we find out that you stole this violin, we're gonna kill you. We're gonna kidnap and torture you and kill you. And then you're like, all right, well, go have fun in Italy, enjoy. We're just gonna chill over here and figure out how we're stealing the violin. And then my people go and they're like, all right, well, we gotta steal the violin. And they have to try to hide it from the mob. But like, if you were a smart mob person, like, why wouldn't you just, I don't know, kidnap them to begin with? Or wouldn't you be very curious as to like why the person you just threatened is now working at the place that you're trying to steal from? And I created some like logic things in there, and so here's the thing, it's not bad. When my friend read the opening, she was like, yeah, I get what they're doing, I understand. And it's not bad, but I have this sense that it could be stronger. I feel like what I have now is okay, but I want it to be better. And the way to make it better is really going to require a lot of rewriting. And I guess maybe that's normal in editing a book. But there's also that little thing in my head, and of course there's forces of comparison, because you hear other people on YouTube be like, oh yeah, I wrote my book and it's great. I'm reading it back and I love it and I'm not gonna have to rewrite it completely. And I'm sitting here being like, I am gonna have to rewrite it completely again for the second time? I have to write this book a third time? Are you kidding me? How much do I suck that I have to rewrite this book for a third time? Or that's just like the really bad voice, you know? The voice that is that's the voice that if you listen to it, you're never gonna get published, you know what I mean? But the voice is there, and it's very annoying. And it comes back to, I could leave it how it is, but parts of it bother me, and I thought of a better way to do it. And the better way to do it requires basically rewriting the entire first act, doing quite a bit of rewriting in the middle, and then I could keep the end the same, except I feel like I can make the end stronger, and I want to make the climax more dramatic, and I want to improve the final climax with the antagonist. Like, I feel like I know how to make it better, and so of course I'm going to make it better. But I have a fear that if I just go and rewrite this again, it's just going to be mediocre again, because it's still not going to be what's in my head. So what a situation to be in. And I don't 100% know what to do, but I have been trying. So one thing that's been really interesting in editing this book is that I talk about StoryGrid on my channel. I've talked about it a little bit. And the concept of value shift is very much in the StoryGrid and very much in Story by Robert McKee, because StoryGrid draws from this as a foundation. Isn't this so nice that it's here and I can just keep holding it up? There's no advertisement here. I don't make any money off of anything. And I've been finding writing the third draft, and even more so as I'm getting into moving towards the fourth draft, that those things like value and theme are just becoming more and more and more important. And so I spent a lot of time just like jotting in my notebook here about the theme and what am I trying to explore and what is my personal like value spectrum and what are we moving along. But it's really been helpful to me, and I always was like, theme, fluff, but it's really helpful to me now to think about it, because it really can it is shaping what I'm doing with the draft and where I'm going. And when you have to have two characters connect it in like a deep way and you're not quite sure what to have them talk about, oh, it's the theme. You just have them talk about like that controlling idea and have that sort of moral dialogue in there, and it's great. So that's been a good thing to learn, and I want to keep applying that lesson because I think the theme really got more clarified and came out more in draft 3, and I want it to be even more so in draft 4, and I just keep saying that. Maybe that's what editing is, but to me, once you've done, 3 drafts, you're at a point where like you're reworking, but you're maybe not completely rewriting, and I feel like I am going to be completely rewriting, which is annoying. I'm kind of going all over the place with this. But basically, I've been trying to fix it. I don't know. I've been using lots of different frameworks. I have been brainstorming. I have a question, like my first question here was, how do I make the drive stronger? And I have a whole bunch of options. And I took all of these for a spin and tried to envision what they would mean. And I ended up going with this sort of last possible option and taking it and saying, okay, what would this mean if this was the inciting incident? If the inciting incident was tweaked in X way, what would that mean? And brainstormed that for a while. I've written out, the problems in the book. I've written out, what is this book? I've clarified the premise. I've been writing about like what's remarkable about the book. I took Aaron Sorkin's Intention and Obstacle, and I've written down intention and obstacle, and I'm gonna keep writing down the obstacles. I have beat sheets. I pulled out story engineering, and I don't even like story engineering very much, but I was like, what is the most basic structure I can look at here? And I've been comparing like the one I have currently with this potential change and what it could look like, and maybe I'll do another one if I have what I currently have and just want to strengthen it. And I've been doing pros and cons of making the change, and brainstorming, and more brainstorming, and value shifts. Like, I've been doing a lot of work on it that doesn't feel like work, you know what I mean? It's the kind of work where there's like no progress that happens, where you're just sitting there thinking. And I do think that that is the most important kind of work, but it's also the most frustrating kind of work, because you're figuring out the story. And once you know the story, the writing is fun, but figuring out the story is difficult. It's difficult, and it's so funny because, again, I thought I fixed this. I thought I did it, but I didn't. Or maybe I didn't do it as deeply as I thought I did. Maybe iteration is a good thing. Maybe iteration is what needs to happen on this book. I don't know. One thing that I'm excited that I did, though, was I started brainstorming, okay, so let's change the first act. When I was doing draft 3, I really had a hard time killing my darlings, because I was like, well, this is what's good in the draft. I don't want to change any of this. So things like the whole sequence, basically the book was the same framework, where they were going to the same places. It was mostly the settings that were the same thing, and some of the basic actions were the same. Now I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, let's really fix this. Let's try to get to the action as soon as possible, as soon as humanly possible. Let's move around when people are being threatened. Let's move around when these conversations are happening. Let's change this whole structure. And so I've started working on that. And what I think I'm going to do with this draft that's different than what I usually do. Usually I consider myself like a huge plotter, and I will spend months plotting and doing story work and coming up with a plan and then writing it. And that is not working. So I'm going to take more of a story genius approach, I think. So today I decided, you know what, let's stop fussing around. I have this idea for how to change the first act. What if I just wrote it? Like, I have an idea for how to change the first scene. What if I just wrote that first scene and then see where it gets me, and then see if that's the direction that I want to go in? So I did. I wrote the first scene today. I wrote this first scene this afternoon, and I thought it was horrible. I was reading it and I was like, this is awful. I hate this so much. I'm a terrible writer. Why do I even try? You have those thoughts. And then I walked to the grocery store, and then I got groceries, and then I took a taxi back. And by the time I got back, I had a different scene in mind, or I had a way to basically fix the scene and make it good. And again, it comes to conflict, intention, and obstacle. Thank you, Aaron Sorkin. I'm really excited to do a video about that masterclass. I love that masterclass so much. But the original one was kind of between Lena and her mentor, talking about someone she's throwing under the bus. And now I have Lena, talking directly to the person that she's throwing under the bus. And it is so much more interesting. And I don't know if it's good. Like, I'm reading it back, I'm like, oh, there's parts of it that are good. Like, that's a good line. That's kind of funny. Like, zinger, zinger, whatever. That's going to become a darling. And I feel better about it, at least. I think that this is the best first scene I've written so far. I don't know if it's perfect. I don't know. Do I keep writing more first scenes and brainstorming and doing different things? Do I go with this direction? It's very difficult to decide exactly what to do, because I have tons of ideas. I have tons of directions this could go. I have tons of ways to strengthen it. But what is the way to strengthen it? What is the best way to strengthen it? What would the best first scene look like? Is this scene turning on the values that it needs to be turning? Is it doing everything that I need it to do? I don't know. So I'm not 100% sure where I'm going with this conversation. And maybe I just have to create some unperfect first 5 scenes of different variations, and then read them back in a month and figure out which one's the best one, which is the most exciting. I don't know. I don't know how to make decisions. And I keep thinking again, the book. Your creative choices are incredibly important, what you show and what you don't show. And I don't think I've ever felt so open-ended with a story before, of like, it could start at any of these points, these are any of the things that could happen. I mean, there are tons of possibilities for first scenes here. There are tons of possibilities for where the next scene is set and how we get into it and where the antagonist rolls up. And I guess I'm overwhelmed with choice, while at the same time annoyed that I'm making choices that are not what I already have written. But that may or may not be stronger than what I already have written. This is so rambly. This is a mess. I'm gonna add this on at the end because I feel like it's kind of relevant to the situation with writing, is that over the past 5 weeks, I have learned how to surf. And I'm actually a solid beginner surfer. But not beginner where like I've never stepped on a board before. Beginner where like I'm like, okay, how do I get better? Like I can stand up and I can ride these waves, but I want to be able to be on them for longer, and I want to be able to do bigger ones, and I want to like improve techniques and like learn more about, you know, the wave swell. I'll put some pictures of me surfing up here. It's quite fun. We had a great time. And so I guess what I'm thinking of that is just like a reminder to myself, maybe to you. Most of us put blocks in ourselves. Like I definitely, up until 6 weeks ago, was like, surfing, ha ha ha, I'm not athletic enough for that. I could never do that. Surfers are like those amazing people who are like superheroes, and I'm not a superhero, so I can't surf. And now I can, because I just tried, and I worked at it, and I was consistent, and now I can. And it's kind of just a reminder, I guess, of writing too, of trying to bring the same mindset that writing is probably harder than surfing. But if you take the same sort of, I guess, growth mindset to it of, okay, we're learning, we're never gonna be perfect, we're never gonna be Aaron Sorkin, but we're always getting there, we're always getting a little bit better. And you can do things that you didn't think you could even a couple weeks ago. You can improve things beyond what you thought was possible in, again, the space of like a couple weeks. To suddenly go from never having done something to do something is incredible. And I think that's what I have to remember, is that right now I'm like, what is this mess? But in a few weeks I could be like, this is such a good version of the story, and I'm so happy that I decided to rewrite X and that I decided to do Y, because it's going really well. So there we go. That's a better note to end off on. Have a great week, everybody. See you next time.